Well, the two teams that always host Thanksgiving, they did it last week, are now playing once again on Thursday Night Football this week. The Cowboys at the Lions in Thursday Night Football. We're going to give you the best bets for Thursday Night Football. Max Chadwick alongside Mason Cameron right now. Mason, what should we know about these two teams and how they match up with each other?
So the first thing is with these history and the trends, this has actually become a bit of an annual affair. We've seen them quite a bit over the last few years. This is their fourth matchup since 2020, Dak versus Goff. And Dallas just holds the edge in the win column. They've won 2 of those 3 matchups, but Detroit holds that edge on the books. They have covered in each of their last 2, and they poured it on last season, Max. If you remember, that game was an absolute whooping, 47-9, and that game was in Dallas. Jared Goff threw for 315, and he was pulled early in the fourth quarter. That was 3 quarters of work to take 315 yards, and as I said, each of those last 3 games have been in Dallas, but now the series shifts. It goes over to Detroit, where the Lions have had a little bit of trouble at Ford Field lately. Since their Week 8 bye, they are 0-3 against the spread as favorites with 2 outright losses. Now, we can talk about those losses a little bit. Losing to Green Bay on Thanksgiving, as much as it's tough, it's understandable. Green Bay is a really strong team. You can hand wave it away a little bit, Max, but when we talk about that other loss that they've had straight up at home to Minnesota in J.J. McCarthy's first start since his return, that was in Week 9. That one's a bit more puzzling. And that's actually the Vikings' only win since returning from their bye week in Week 6.
Well, it was 9 in Week 9. That's why they won that
9
game.
in Week 9. There we
is.
go. Exactly. Gotta believe in 9. And I mean, on the flip side, though, Dallas hasn't been great on the road this season. They're 3-3 against the spread, so not terrible. But, 50% cover probability generally has you a little bit skittish betting on the road there for Dallas. But, I mean, what can we say about this team? They've looked like a brand new squad since coming out of their bye, healthier, and obviously with a bunch of new weapons on this defense after the trade deadline. They've covered 3 straight games, and that includes 2 straight-up wins as the dog versus Philly, versus Kansas City. Now, we have to talk about it. Obviously, both those games are at home for Dallas, but those are huge accomplishments for a team that was almost dead in the water a few weeks ago, and now they look like a new team completely. Took down both of the teams to represent their conferences in the Super Bowl last season, and now they're going to turn their attention to proving if they can be a contender on the road this season. So for this matchup specifically and how we're seeing both of these teams sort of pan out, I agree with something that our guy, Judah Fortgang, wrote early in this week when we get together over on PFF.com and we look at the lines you should bet early in the week. Make sure you guys are over there checking that out every single week. This is a game that Judah actually highlighted, and I completely agree with him on this one. A big thing for this is that there's numerous mismatches that are going to be key in this game. For the defensive side of the ball in Dallas, I mean, what can we say? Quinnen Williams has been incredible and even better than what we saw in Detroit. And now he comes up against a Detroit interior that has really, really struggled. Williams producing outlandish pressure rates, leads the NFL in PFF run defense grade, and now he's going to come up against this Lions interior that is bottom 10th percentile in pass blocking grade at both guard positions and center. And that's just one piece of the puzzle. When we talk about their coverages, that is something that I want to highlight that has been incredibly worrying for this Detroit defense. Dallas started off as one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. Max, I know that you'll remember this. We've talked about it numerous times throughout this season, but their EPA per play was upwards of 31st in the NFL through Week 9. Now, from that point forward, they are moved up to 18th. Now, that's not world beaters, but we have to also talk about they've played some tough teams with the Eagles, with Kansas City. the inverse of that is actually Detroit, who started off 7th over that same 9-week span in EPA per dropback. Now, dead last, 32nd in the NFL. And that number is significantly worse than what we saw this Dallas team play by. And a big thing is that this secondary has been really banged up. They got back DJ Reed recently, but Terrion Arnold now on the IR. They're likely not going to get Kirby Joseph back, who's been a little bit hobbled since returning to practice. And that spells trouble for a team that runs a high rate of man coverage against these Cowboys pass catchers. George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, I mean, those guys can separate with the best of them. This is going to be a big breakout for both of those guys. Maybe breakout's not the right word for it because they're already incredible, but this is going to be a matchup where they can really eat.
Absolutely. So, all right, before we get to the player props, I'm betting might be one of those Cowboys receivers in those player props. You have a favorite game pick in this game to pick?
I mean, if it wasn't already pretty apparent, I'm taking Dallas in the points here. I'm a believer in what we've seen from that defense and what this offense can produce. And really, it's just that this Detroit team is so banged up. The secondary torn up, like I just said. And now we're talking about the receiving core. They've been without Sam Laporta for a few weeks. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's going to be a game-time decision in this one. And it hasn't looked great throughout his participation through the week. So I'm going to be taking Dallas in the points.
All right, love it. So Dallas +3 is our first bet we're going to give you guys right now. Before we dive into the beautiful PFF player prop tool and give you our best player prop bets for Thursday Night Football, I want to remind you guys, PFF Plus is 30% off right now when you use the promo code HOLIDAY30. Use that promo code right now to get PFF Plus, the best subscription in sports, 30% off right now. You get access to that player prop tool that Mason and I are going to dive into in just a second. Our best bets for every single game in the NFL and college football as well. You get access to all the same grades, data, and analytics that every NFL team uses. And you get access to the 2026 NFL Mock Draft Simulator. You get access to the fantasy football tools. If you're trying to win your fantasy football championship right now, everything is available with a PFF Plus subscription. Again, 30% off right now when you use the promo code HOLIDAY30. This sale will not last very long, though. Use that promo code right now and get PFF Plus for 30% off right now. Also, want to remind you guys that Mason won't only be giving out picks for Thursday Night Football. He gives out picks for Sunday and Monday alongside our great betting analysts in Ben Lindsay and Judah Fortgang. Every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, the PFF NFL Betting Show goes live here on this channel, giving out their favorite plays of the weekend. Check them out. They're up a ton of money this year. So whatever money you win from them, you could spend on a PFF Plus subscription and, of course, have a ton of money left over to do whatever you want with it as well. So check them out on the PFF NFL Betting Show. They're up a lot of units so far this year. Mason, what is your favorite player prop bet in Thursday Night Football?
I think I have to go. I hammered the Lions just a little bit earlier when I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys. But we're going to see some production out of some of these playmakers, especially one of the guys that I like is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, over 4.5 receptions here. Since Sam Laporta went down, Gibbs has just been a target monster for this team. His targets per route run have raised almost 10% from weeks 1 to 10, 22.5%. From weeks 11 to 13, that's skyrocketed to 32% over his last 3 games. 24 targets, 19 receptions. And now, like we talked about, potentially without Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's vacating 100 targets this season, that's going to narrow the target distribution. And I think we're going to see quite a bit of Gibbs, and especially when we talk about what this Dallas defense has allowed to running backs. Now, they're an improved unit, but that still hasn't really equated to their overall metrics seeing gigantic bumps. They're taking steps forward. They've played some tough teams, and this matchup is actually a +1 for Gibbs, who is facing that Dallas defense that has allowed the 6th most receptions to running backs this season. So that's going to be a spot that I go to. They gave, I think, 7 up to Saquon Barkley a couple weeks ago, and I know Ashton Genty had quite a few in his matchup as well. So that's going to be a spot that I attack.
Yeah, you see that right there on the screen. The Dallas is 32nd out of 32 teams in linebacker coverage this year, and Jahmyr Gibbs against linebacker coverages is 2nd among all running backs this year. So yeah, this is a Dallas coverage unit that's not been very good this year, and Jahmyr Gibbs, of course, is one of the best receiving backs we have in the NFL. If Amon-Ra St. Brown is out of this game, or if he's just banged up in general, Jahmyr Gibbs could have a lot of targets go his way. I like that bet a lot. What's another bet that you like in Thursday Night Football?
We alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think that these Cowboys wide receivers are going to be able to eat. And I'm going to be taking George Pickens at 77.5 receiving yards to go over that number. He's one of 2 players in the NFL this season to have over 1,100 yards already and to have 30 or more receptions of 15-plus yards. He's hit this over in each of his last 7 games, and that's a lot of that is since getting CeeDee Lamb back in the lineup. And really all that's done is opened him up. There's still enough targets to go around for both of these guys. And this week, he gets a plus matchup against this Detroit secondary, who, like I said, is banged up. And they're allowing the 3rd highest rate of explosive receptions in the NFL. Max, they have had 18 receptions of 15-plus yards in just their last 2 games. It hasn't looked great for them. And for a team that plays one of the highest rates of man coverage in the NFL, this is a very plus matchup for Pickens, who is incredible against man looks. A 90.7 receiving grade, that's 2nd highest in the NFL against man coverage. 4.96 yards per route run, almost a 5 spot every time he runs a route. And 7 explosive plays against man coverage. That is the most in the NFL. That is definitely going to be a spot that I'm hammering.
So it's gone up a little bit to 79.5. I'm guessing you're still cool with the extra 2 yards there,
I'm
right?
still cool with the extra 2 yards. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. Now, this is one of those ones where obviously things move throughout the week, and you're going to want to get on these things earlier than later. But I think that this Pickens matchup is a plus where a yard or 2 isn't going to scare me away. But if it were to jump significantly from the time of this recording to kickoff, I would maybe be a little bit more, hesitant just with the expected value range. But this is still going to be a matchup where I think Pickens has a good opportunity.
Yeah, he's at least 82 receiving yards in 6 of his last 9 games so far. He's been on fire this year for Dallas, and yeah, against a Detroit secondary that hasn't been great at times this year, and also a little bit banged up right now too. We could have a big day against the Lions' heavy man coverage. Any other bets that you want to kind of keep an eye on right now in Thursday Night Football?
So I want to highlight a couple. One specifically, big shout out to our guy Ben Lindsay. This was the Ben Lindsay special on Thanksgiving. Ross Dwelley anytime touchdown was 10-1. And I don't know if you guys watched that game, but we were this close. We were this close to that Ross Dwelley touchdown. It's moved quite a bit of ways from 10-1. Now it sits sort of around that plus 400 range. But, I think that we're going to see that. That game on Thanksgiving, it was a tough look. It was a wildcat goal line pass. Green Bay was on it, and Monty just sort of rocketed a pretty bad ball. This week, Brock Wright likely out, and Detroit, just as Ben said in that analysis, is that Detroit really loves their tight ends. They really love to look at their tight ends near the goal line. So I am going to ride the bus and go Ross Dwelley anytime touchdown potentially here at plus 400.
Our guy Ben Lindsay, every Sunday whenever we come into the office, we always ask him, what's the most disgusting bet that you have this week? And he always gives us a ladder of whatever. It always seems to hit, too. It's always a disgusting bet, and it always seems to hit, and he always seems to make a lot of money off of it. So we always make fun of him for making those bets, but honestly, every single one of them hits. So I can't blame you at all for tailing him on this Ross Dwelley anytime touchdown. I will also be sprinkling some money on Ross Dwelley plus 400 to score a touchdown on Thursday night. Anything else you want to shout out in the Thursday Night Football? Is that it?
We've talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to be a game time decision. So this is going to be one to watch for, which the lines might not really come out until we get much closer to kickoff. But I'm gonna potentially keep an eye on Isaac Tesla overs. I mean, there's nothing out right now, but we've seen an increased route share in each of his last 3 games. Even when Amon-Ra has played, he had 30 routes on Thanksgiving, and that's due in part to that injury. He had 2 receptions of 15-plus yards and 35 total. I think that he could get another pretty solid workload. And like we said, there has been some cracks in the Dallas defense over the season. They've looked better, but I still think that there is some opportunity, especially if the line is fairly low. Give me Isaac Tesla overs.
All right, so you got the best bets right there. The best bets for Thursday Night Football between the Cowboys and the Lions. We got the Dallas Cowboys +3 against the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs to go over 4.5 receptions. George Pickens to go over 79.5 receiving yards, wherever you can get it right now. Ross Dwelly, anytime touchdown at +400. And then also keep an eye out for any Isaac Tesla lines, especially if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out on Thursday Night Football. For Mason Cameron, I'm Max Chadwick. We'll see you guys next week with our best bets for Thursday Night Football.